world where achievements and accolades motivate us to do more and be more, we're often left wondering, is this really it?
Deep inside, you know there is more to life. You're ready to leave behind the old, push your way through, and claim the deeper life that's calling you.
That's where we excel.
We're your hosts, Stephanie Allen
and Maren,
and this is the Soulful Leader Podcast.
Sit back and relax as we share the shortcuts we've uncovered to help you make shift happen. Welcome to the Soulful Leader Podcast with Maren and Stephanie. And we wanted to talk today about wealth. And I know for myself, going into a new year, looking at where I want to be in the next year, in the next 5 years. And we talked about that last week with our future visions and all of that stuff. And definitely a part of that is always circled around wealth, at least for most people. There's a piece of it of where do I want my wealth to be? And Stephanie and I have been having this conversation on our own around what is wealth. And one of our mentors has a program that we're a part of. And a lot of it is determined by how much money your business makes. We're talking about that of like, where does that fit in with consciousness and with your own sense of self and joy and what you bring to the world?
I want to say something too for those who are listening, you leaders out there, is that when we make our value and our worth based on how much we make or the money we make, it's really not supporting leadership. Because a true leader, I was just thinking of even of the word that just kind of, well. It's like, it's a well, and a well is deep. It's deep within. It's not about what you do. It's so much in the outer material consumer kind of world. It's the well, how deep are you able to go in? I remember one of my clients one time who was building high rises. He said, that every time you go to build a high rise, you have to go that much deeper down into the earth. Otherwise it won't sustain the outer growth. And I'm like, what a visual really. And what a metaphor of, if we want to make a difference in the world, we need to go deeper inside. And so it isn't so much what you do as a job or a career, or when I'm talking of leadership and wealth, I'm talking about how deep are you going in into really learning, who am I? Why am I here? What is my heart singing or dancing with in life? That is truly being able to connect to that, to touch that. That takes skill. It takes courage. It takes love. And to me, that is true wealth in leadership. So.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that visual. And it makes me think of trees. Because a tree, whatever the canopy is above, is also what's happening below. And we do tend to develop ourselves one-sided. We put all of the energy and the effort into what it looks like on the outside, how much money there is, and not into the internal version of that, of who am I becoming as a person, and what does that wealth actually require of me to develop internally in order for me to be in a good relationship and do a healthy relationship with it? And that's not something anybody talks about as being in a healthy relationship with your money.
Oh my gosh, it's almost like a sacrilegious thing to talk about, really. It's like, and it's so sad because, if we just take off money, like just take off the dollar signs or whatever, and you look at it, we even call it currency. It's movement. It's movement. It's flow. And whether that is dollars and cents or whether that is actually really at a deeper level, it's your inner movement. It's your flowing. Where do you feel both inspired and stretched at the same time? and that you're giving in a way. And I think we have this, at least maybe I'm speaking of myself. I know I can feel sometimes like if I haven't got my to-do list done, I know we've talked about podcasts in the past about to-do lists, and I like to change them into to-who lists. It's like, maybe it's not mine to do. These are some of the things that I would like to have done, but they're not necessarily mine to do. And just because I'm sitting and reading a book doesn't mean I'm not doing quote unquote anything. I'm actually, it's what I'm reading, who's showing up to read the book, why I'm reading, all the deeper levels of understanding of nourishment. We really have lost the value of resting, of being. And I'm not saying that doing isn't a value. Of course it is, but it's like, who is doing the doing? If that makes sense, in the wealth of life. And, our teacher also, Maren, says, wealth is the definition of like what you have when your money's all gone. So what are you left with? Years ago, I was in Los Angeles working, and I had this Honda Civic. Loved this Honda Civic. It was the best Honda Civic. Got the greatest gas mileage. I bought it when I lived in Alberta in Canada. And just, it could go everywhere. And it was just such a reliable car. And I remember moving down to Los Angeles, and I was seeing a client in Malibu. Beautiful, beautiful home overlooking the Pacific Ocean. And I had parked out in front, the front door. And I remember the man coming out and saying, would you mind moving your car? I didn't pay for a multi-million-dollar view to look at your Honda Civic. And I could feel shame. And I was like, wow, you're missing it. That's not who I am. It's like, my car isn't who I am. It's like, I used to call it, it was Myrtle, the slow but steady turtle. I loved her. That's what I called my car. And I could remember at that time, all of a sudden having such shame about who I am. And, I was working on his wife, and I had such empathy for her all of a sudden, of going, wow, to try to keep our looks up, to try to keep our finances up, to try to keep it how it looks to the neighbors, to the people, to the society, versus what's really important in my own heart that I want to grow, that I want to evolve, that I want to bring forth to the world. It's a different question.
It very much is. And the thing that you mentioned about our teachers, both of our teachers actually have mentioned the your wealth is what you have when your money's all gone, kind of idea. And that's that internal. That's how deep the skyscraper goes, how deeply you need to go down into things in order to be in a good relationship and truly support what you're creating in a healthy way. And when you bring up the shame, I think that a lot of times people assume that the shame is one-sided, of there's shame around not having enough, like that you experienced. And I have been on the other side of that, is I have money, and there is a lot of shame for me around the being a have. I am a have person. And so I have all of these beliefs and ideas around being a good enough person, and all of them center around, well, it doesn't include money. And in order to be a good person, it's like, in the Bible, there's something about it's harder for a rich man to get into heaven than to go through the eye of a needle, or something like that. And that's how I was raised. And yet that's also, it's like there's this tear that's inside of us, and it's so much of it is based on money, of you want to have it, but you want to be a good person. And where is that place in each of us that we can find compassion for ourselves and for our own desires?
Such a good point. Such a good point. And that takes a very courageous soul to look within. And, isn't it interesting that I've heard of a saying, it's like, your net worth is based on your self-worth. And to me, that's also really hurtful too. It's like, what if we weren't judged by our net worth? What if we were actually, it didn't matter? Because I really truly believe, like we said, when we die, it really doesn't matter.
Right.
It's like our judgment is like, we're going to go and, go to the pearly gates or whatever you believe in. And it's like, you're going to relook at your life and saying, was that important? I worked with a client the other day, and they're struggling of, not really liking their job so much, or it's a means to the ends kind of thing. But, would rather be at home and caring for their children and building a dream with their partner. And I said, well, what would have to happen for you to stay home? And it's like, well, I can't, because we won't be able to make the bills. And I was just inquiring, because we all have that thought, don't we? It's like, well, I can't do that because how will I survive? But yet if we don't, we never change. We never evolve in the way that, and we never evolve in the way that, in our hearts and our souls. It's like, sometimes we want to be stretched in a way that also inspires us. So it's like, when we align their gifts and strengths and our passions and our values all together, and we can step towards that, that is actually what's going to actually create our wealth more. Remember, the wealth is the well inside, which then the outer, you won't need as much. You have more resiliency, you have less stress. Like, it's just such a beautiful thing. So I said to this person, I said, well, what if you stayed home? Like, what if you stayed home? And I said, you're really good at paying the bills and looking after the kids and making things organized. And it's like, do you have some sort of belief that, obviously you do, because otherwise you'd be there already. But, do you have some sort of belief that you're going to fall short of not being able to take care of? And they're like, absolutely. And I said, well, your partner, what about them? Are they able to work well? Well, yeah, they actually do. They make more money than I do, and different things like that. And I said, well, what are their gifts and strengths? So, they're really creative. They're really wonderful. And I said, well, here's the thing. If you're really good at looking at the details and they're really good at being creative and making money, why not set the person up for success to be able to make money, and set yourself up for success to be able to look after it and steward it well, which actually frees up the other person who really just wants to go and make money, doesn't want to have to look after the details and things. It actually frees them. It actually liberates them, and they get to be out in the world in a way that is right for them. Our teacher also says, it's important that we do what we love to do in the way that we love to do it, with the people we love most, in the way that the world most needs it done.
Yeah.
I really, truly believe that's true wealth. It has nothing to do with money.
But what I heard is the energy that it takes to shift those stereotypes of one of the things that I happen to know is the person in this story that would like to stay home is the gentleman. And the stereotype in our society is obviously the men are the breadwinners and the women stay home. And that's been shifting over time. And it's now everybody's a breadwinner. And what would it look like? And what does need to happen? And what are the things inside of us that need to change for exactly what you said, to do the things that we're really called to do, instead of the assumptions and the stereotypes and the learned behaviors, the conditioning that have been put on us for years. And that's that going deep, going the inner route of, who do I really want to become? What is calling to me? And if I could say that none of those conditions out there, if I didn't have to subscribe to them and they weren't affecting me, what would I want to do? I know when I was asked that question, it was almost too freeing. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. That's crazy, because I can't. And I just used that as my excuse, other than so that I didn't actually have to explore it. right? Because I wanted to hold on to what I knew, which is the conditioning that I was raised in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like we need to change the outer world, but the only way we can do that is to change within. That's it. And we have total freedom and control to be able to do that. A lot of us just don't know how, or we're so caught up and conditioned in a way that we feel afraid. We're afraid that we're uncertain about, well, what happens if I do step out? Like what if it fails? And I'm like, but what if it succeeds? You know, the other part too is like, if you keep going in an outer world of making your value and your worth based on what you do for a living or what you don't do for a living, or how much money you make, or your to-do list, or all those different things, it's exhausting. And that is energy. And so when we're talking about money, it's currency. So let's talk about the currency of your mindset, currency of your emotions, currency of the love currency. It's like really truly feel that in the deep well of our hearts and souls is that we want to love and be loved. That's it. And that's actually what we're here for. But we get caught up in so many other things. And so I'll ask my clients a lot of times, they'll say, you know, are you investing your time doing X, Y, or Z, or are you spending time? And you're just kind of like going through the motions. I mean, how many times have we said that? Oh, I'm just going through the motions, whether it's with a relationship, whether it's with a job, whether it's with, you know, cleaning the house, whatever it is. It's like, are you just going through the motions? Then you're not fully engaged. You're not fully in your heart. What if you can shift that?
Yeah, because when I'm not fully engaged, I'm also not able to be in joy. And we go through those motions thinking that, oh, that's my path to joy, not recognizing the fact that I could be in joy in this moment by just shifting my mindset.
Absolutely.
And that's a kind of a heady concept. And I want to actually frame that from a leadership perspective and kind of bring this all full circle, because as leaders, why is it important to even look at kind of all the questions that we were talking about, where I am in my relationship to wealth, and not just the outer version of it, the inner version of it. And then what I just said of like, where am I in my relationship to joy? And could I actually shift my mindset and boom, be in joy? And if you're not in that place, it's not a shame thing. It's just oh, is that possible? I know when somebody said that to me, it's like, crap, that's even possible. It is. It takes some effort, and it's an inward journey. It's not the outward journey of more money. It is an inward journey of what does that look like for myself and how would I get there? And it's looking at, where does true joy come from? Is it from mastering all of that money out there? And I would encourage you as leaders to look and talk to some of those people who have a lot of money, because I think a lot of them are not in that place. And every single one of the people that truly has found joy said that it was not from the money.
So we could conclude really of saying leadership is not what you do.
It's who you are.
It's who you are, and what you are working to uncover and to rest inward with.
And it's a journey. It's an inward journey as well as an outward journey. One of our teachers has a saying. He likes to call us leading learners. And when I found that, and instead of thinking of myself as a leader, I think of myself as a leading learner, because I am on an ongoing quest to continually upgrade and understand more about myself and why I'm here, and all the people that I'm here to do that thing with, all of my partners in crime, like you, Stephanie.
And as we would say in yoga, it's like, we're not striving to be leading learners. We're not striving to get somewhere. It's a joy of unfolding and uncovering and being curious and being in wonder and playing with that journey. And that's what we hope that all of you that are listening today and in the future, that you would join us on that journey of playfulness, of adventure, of exploration, of unlearning those outer world distractions and conditioning. and to really start dropping into what is it that feeds your soul? What is it that lights you up? Because that is truly empowerment of leadership. When you see somebody who's living in their heart and in a way that is peaceful and kind, that is way more inspiring. Really, when you really get to know that people, like you just said, Maren, like sometimes you get to know these people who have, not to say that having lots of money isn't a good thing or isn't a bad thing. It's just that there are people on all levels who are doing or having and are still empty inside.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, as a wrap up, the whole thing for me is it's not about the money, whether you have it or you don't. It's about the inward journey of, do you love yourself or do you not? Because no matter how much money you have, if you don't love yourself, you won't ever find the joy. So it is both an inner and an outer journey that we are on this planet together.
Thank you so much. And yeah, that's such a great, to love oneself. And people there, I'm not just talking about loving the physical. It's like, do you love your mind? Do you love your emotions? Even the nasty ones, even the ones you've been trying to squash down in your body for years. Can you find a way to love that? And can you uncover it enough to really love the true self, the soul? Do you even know what that is? Because I think we get very distracted by the physical, that we miss that undercurrent of all those other levels that truly will bring you the well of wealth that you can drink from.
So for everyone that is listening, some of you have some paths of your own and some of you don't. If you're interested in joining one of our paths, we have our own inner mastery coming up. It starts in the end of January. It runs 1 month, and you can find more information about that on our website, the soulfulleaderpodcast.com. We would love to see you in person instead of just talking to you over the podcast. So if you'd like to join us and meet us in person, feel free. We would love to have you.
And that wraps up another episode of the Soulful Leader Podcast with your hosts, Stephanie Allen
and Maren Oslak. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to dive deeper, head over to our website at thesoulfulleaderpodcast.com.
Until next time.